Hello, 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 and welcome to another One Line of Code. I am One Line. It feels like ages since we've seen each other. Today, on our stream, since we haven't talked at all today, it's a new day, completely new day, not the same day that we just had Community Day number 40 on. We're going to be working through implementing the methods for getting user templates, of which we already have some tests written, and the method stubs. So that here are the method stubs for the new tests, or for the new methods for getting user templates based off of one of them is based off of the list of fields that we are importing from a file, and the other one is getting a template by its ID, by its GUID at least. So was that day 40 thingy pre-recorded? No, it was not. That was live. That was definitely live. The reason you didn't hear me saying hi back out loud was because Bindle was talking and I didn't want to interrupt him. Or maybe Deflex was talking and I didn't want to interrupt him. But again, day 40, that is supposed to be me working on reworking the bot that I have on stream so that I can open source the bot itself. But I keep saying this way. I would really like to have this functionality, this feature completed, especially if I can do it before the end of the month, aka today. I have such high hopes for myself. I got high hopes for a living. Model field mapping. Did I really call one field mapping model and the other model field mapping? Wait a minute. Why is this called model field mapping? That is very odd. So this is just supposed to be called field mapping. What I'm thinking happened was that I created a using alias to this field mapping and I called it model field mapping, but this is definitely supposed to be field mapping. Then I changed the usage name of it in the file and I probably control dotted on it and hit enter without reading what it said and ended up most likely hitting rename class, rename object. Okay, so there should be a thing called model field mapping here, which is using model field mapping. This is what I was supposed to have had done, because there is also a database object called field mapping, which is right here. And so I needed to distinguish them because I'm using both the database models and the models from the import utility library in the same file. Okay, that was weird. That was very weird. Okay, so there's a few things going on. Number one is that the fully qualified type name belongs with the import template. Which is not right. Oh, this is kind of confusing now. Okay, if we take a look at our relationships, what are you? What did you used to be? File field. You are now called imported file field. And hence. Show as collection. Show as association. Okay. Let's see. Welcome back, Tyndall. Again, if you guys are busy or just tired or don't feel like being around, I will not be offended if you do not feel like hanging around for another stream of scratching head and banging on keyboard and hoping something good comes out. All right, zoom out just a little. Okay, so here's essentially my database structure. I had to do it as a class library because for whatever reason, EF Core Power Tools didn't want to diagram my database for me. I don't know why. So I'm just doing it as a class diagram. This view reminds me of e.17. True. Database first was so much fun. It was... I liked it. I liked working with it. But I did get very, very comfortable with code first, so I'm also not angry at code first. So here's what the issue is. A user import template is for a specific target type. It would not make sense to have an import template be defined where the only thing we care about is the name of the from field and the name of the to field. Or would it? So like what I'm wanting to do is create an association between the user import template and the target type. I don't know if I'll be able to show this with how broken the code is, but here's the thought. Lab data service. Okay. Oh, and just so that I don't forget, it's going to be as no tracking. That should help us a little bit. Okay, return resp. And I may as well do all of my logging stuff. Man, there's so many questions that I want to ask all at the same time, or if anyone happens to have opinions on this. But yeah, let's start here. Build should work. I've always felt that I want full control over my database, but I see the upside of code first. No! I did a rename refactor. It should have renamed that. Where else? User import template request is missing target name. Is this the test? Yeah. Here's another null forgiveness operator, because again, I'm inside of a test. So I know for sure that type of test target model dot full name is not going to be null. Why that's even nullable at all doesn't make sense to me. Why would dot full name on type ever be null? Whoa. Might need to go refill my water bottles too. Didn't do that during the break. I was too busy typing back. Did you build? It built. Okay, so we're gonna run it. This is what the question situation brain thing is. I did a build. Why aren't you using the compiled bin? That's why I did a build before doing .NET Watch. I also need to clear up whatever this error is. But it's on the sample app, so I'm not too worried about it. Or it's not an error, it's a warning. I just don't like seeing it. I have 0 other warnings in the app. Why would I? Why? Just why? Okay, as a developer, I have decided to use the data import utility library that we wrote over the past few streams. I am deciding for this app that the target output using that data import utility is going to be a rtrack upload model. What I'm wanting to store in the database for this app specifically is the correlation of this set of input fields and their types with the configurations that I'm doing to turn it into an rtrack upload model. That said, should I be keeping track? Oh man, thank you so much for the follow. Twice? I mean 2? So I don't have names showing on follows, but if you feel like saying hi, then please feel free to. I appreciate the follows very, very much. Okay, does it make sense to only correlate the mapping of fields that appear here? So how do I put this? Right now, what I am storing in the database when I save a template is the collection of fields and the underlying data type that those fields, that those properties belong to, in separate tables. So the target type is rtrack upload model. The target mappable fields target type mappable fields are each of these fields in that type. Then there is an association. Oh, I guess I can show that picture now that I've shown it on screen. So target type would be the rtrack upload model. Target type mappable field would be every single one of the fields of this type. So it's essentially doing reflection on target type and getting back all of the properties. To generate PDFs, have you been paying attention to? So I guess a description of the data file import tool, that's completely okay. A description of what the data file import tool does, which again, we have our previous streams in this project series of putting that together. It's a way of turning an imported CSV or Excel file into a C# class. So it doesn't have anything to do with generating reports or anything like that. It's just we take an input file, we output a C# class. And when we are setting up the properties, no, I only do free attention. It's a moral issue. I don't think attention should be paid ever. True. I saw it's called document something. Oh, earlier, the digital document management system. So this one doesn't generate PDFs. This one is used by the Document Tracking Center. They have PDFs, they have OCR'd, they've done the character recognition thing on it, and then they upload the PDFs to file storage. They get indexed, they become searchable, and so they can search and retrieve existing PDFs using this system, or other types of documents. It could be JPEG, it could be whatever. But they're almost always PDFs. This one, however, is probably something that you're looking for. It sounds like you're asking specifically if I have any applications that generate PDFs. And so this application, I need to grab some wells. This one. Give me these ones. Let's say that I wanted to generate a PDF of charts of what the well water did for the past 10 years or something. Oh, you gotta actually pick a well. Watch this be a dry well. Oh no, it's got measurements. Okay, so this is what water looked like over the past 10 years for each measurement that we have taken water elevation. So I say that I want this chart to be part of a set of charts that I'm going to output for 24003. Of those water levels, can we find out what happened to the measurements of dildren? No, we can't, because that has not been sampled. Can we find out what happened to the measurements of fluorine? No, we can't, because it hasn't been sampled. Just give me at least one. This well hasn't been sampled for analytes. Okay, now we know. So no, we can't check for that. Can we check whatever information reverse gradients gives us? So there's a lot of scientific terms that I don't really know what all they are. But let's say that this well was part of this well system. And so we wanted to give the water level by itself and then in context with all of the other wells in that system. And we want them both on the same PDF document. So that's what this add chart to document is. And then we print the chart document. Here's what a preview of it looks like. And then if I go to print, then I can print it as PDF. And that's how I generate PDFs. I don't have anything in the back end that does any kind of PDF writing. I rely on formatting my web document properly so that if a user goes and tries to print PDF or print at all, then it'll fit into a PDF just fine. This also works with, oops. This also works with multi-page documents. So let's say that I wanted to print the data from this. And again, we'll do it as a report. I guess there is no report document. Wow, that didn't do anything. Did I actually click on it? Oh, it's because I missed. Page numbers would show up. Page numbers and page titles. Is that actually? Oh, because I didn't have it turned on. Again, this is all CSS. This is all UI stuff here. This was a really fun app to do, by the way. And there we go. Now we have page numbers positioned at the expected margin that they will be printing with. And this is, again, specific to our site. So I know what the users want to see, and I know how they're going to print it out. Otherwise, if it needed to be more general, more generic with let the user specify the margins, I have another app that I do have it to where you can specify margins and see a page preview and all of that fun stuff within the app. And then that'll set the output page formatted according to their desired options. Woo! That was really hard to say. So there you go. That's how I generate PDFs. I leave it up to the browser to print a PDF. What do I use for reports? Again, it used to be those reports that you saw me showing, like the actual, well, I guess not that one. What is the app that has water management? I'll say it this way. Is it? I mean, thank you. So here are reports. This used to be a desktop application, and all of these reports, so let's do 1 year of reports for every well at our site, every site treatment plant system at the Rocky Mountain National Wildlife Refuge for the past year. I want the reports for. So every single one of these reports used to be a Crystal Reports report. They were broken Crystal Reports reports, but they were Crystal Reports reports. So I ended up turning all of them into web reports. And by web report, what I mean is I wrote UI that will take whatever data is coming in and format it and print it out the way that the Crystal Reports would have printed it. And so this is all styling. You can F12. You can see that this is a page thing. Let me zoom out. Report preview wrapper with height set. It does all of the pagination by rendering all of the content and then using JavaScript interop to say, how tall is this page? Well, if it's higher than the maximum height of this page, which is the height of the page minus the margins, then move the record down to the next page. And then check the height again and keep doing that until the height of the page is within the bounds of the content. And then of course there is all of this no print stuff on things that if I hit Control P on this page, the only thing that's going to print out are the reports. And that prints out the way that we expect to see them. Yay! And then again, this is how they turn it into a PDF for the annual summary report or whatever other kinds of reports that they are required to generate. Good questions though. Findle was saying, good enough to... Oh, there's no junk. Wait. That made sense in my head. Man. While I was talking, a lot of chat came in that I missed. All right. I'll start here. It's a moral issue, blah, blah, blah. Pension should be free. Findle then said, dry well is what drywall turns into when it's done something good. Made sense in my head. Barely, says Thindle. Gabriel says, gee, this is great. Thindle said to Gabriel, there's no junk in the trunk. Gabriel said to Thindle, I wouldn't say that about my trunk. Yes, this is fun. I need to do something. What do you use for reports? Okay, thank you. This is impressive. I appreciate you saying that it's impressive. The original app, I'm gonna also remind people, the original applications were JSP, and they did exist with full UI and stuff. And when I got here, my primary job was to turn them from JSP applications to something Microsoft. I chose MVC at the time. .NET Framework 4.7 was what I was comfortable with. So I converted all of the web apps into MVC apps in that framework. The desktop apps went from VB6 to VB.NET WinForms apps, same framework. And then it used to be on-premise, so the desktop apps access the database directly using SQL login. So that's how you logged into the applications. And then we needed to remove the local data center stuff. We weren't allowed to be a data center, so we needed to move our files, our web apps, our everything to somewhere else. And the people that were going to host it for us, that were telling us that we needed to move it, were going to charge us a couple $100,000 a year for storing the data, for using the services. I don't actually know if that's true. That's just what I heard, because I wasn't involved in the discussions for what the parent company was looking for. But they also gave us the option to use the cloud. So we looked at Azure, we looked at AWS, and we looked at IBM. And I think they might have even looked at Google Cloud. But we went with AWS, set it all up, and we're running the apps on that now. But that means that my desktop apps wouldn't work anymore because they can't talk to the database directly. Well, they could, but I wasn't going to put the username and password for the database there. And I'm like, this is not how you do modern software. So I made an API, and I had the desktop apps talking to the API, and that's how you get data. Google Compute Engine, if I recall. I think it's GCS, Google Cloud Services. Yeah, so anyway, after a while, after I got all of the apps, I guess one more part of the story, because my ego, is that the previous developers had left pretty much the day before I got there. So there was only one primary developer left at the company while I was being selected and going through the interview process and all that stuff. And they left the day before I came into the company, is what it seemed like. Because they were there when I went to visit, and then they were not there when I made it here to start the job. And so I was doing all of these apps with a help desk person who became my junior developer. So he was help desk, didn't really have software development experience, and then was like, okay, I'll be your junior developer and I'll learn how to code and we'll do this together. And so when they were asking me how long it would take, or actually the company was telling me how long they wanted it to take. They're like, we need to get this done within the year. And the previous developers had quoted them about 4 years total. I don't know. I can't remember if it was 4 years per app or 4 years overall. And there are a lot of apps. So here are all of the apps that we manage and maintain and do stuff with. Not all of these are apps. Some of them are satellite libraries. Some of them are just file repositories, but the majority of these are web or desktop applications. I think it's something like 7 web, 3 desktop. applications. So it was going to take a long time to convert them from JSP to .NET. And when I got there, they're like, this needs to be done in 1 year. And I'm like, I could try. And by the end of 1 year, I had all of the apps converted to .NET. Not the best because they were pretty much straight ports from JSP to .NET, which meant that I also inherited a lot of not quite the way I would have done it code. Because Java is quite similar to C#, so there's a lot of stuff that you could just port straight over as far as functionality. But yeah, so finished it within a year. Then I took the next year working on one of the primary desktop apps called DDMS, got that from VB6 to VB.NET with an API for the backend. And then I was like hearing about this Blazor thing that's coming out, and I was super excited about it. And I'm like, I want to try that. This sounds like the perfect type of app for that. So then I ended up picking up Blazor and using DDMS as the first app. So this one that you saw here, this was a VB6 desktop app. I ended up turning that app into my first Blazor app. That's when I started getting my habits, bad or good, not really going to say which, of creating my own component libraries and styling and all that stuff, and how to structure my Blazor web app, Blazor WASM versus Blazor server code with my separate libraries, and being able to have both project types in the same solution, same UI. But that's where I established all of those habits. And then it went from there. .NET 6 eventually came out. Things got amazing. Blazor got amazing, in my opinion. And .NET 8 came out, .NET 8 came out and said, here's a new template to follow. And so I did one of the apps to .NET 8 recently, and it worked really nicely. Yeah, that's the history of the apps. Now you know. Okay, you're even using page break CSS, or you're using the page break CSS thing? Yeah, I am. I'm gonna watch some of the stuff that my dad makes fun of me for watching. Is it anime? Because I love anime. You shouldn't be made fun of to watch if you watch anime. If it's reality TV, I mean, I would laugh, but you watch what you watch. You enjoy the types of things that you enjoy. It's cartoons. I'll call it cartoons. I'm okay with it being cartoons. That just means that I'm still young at heart. I will always be. Anyway, you should be lurking. Why are you still listening to me? I hope you're enjoying your anime. If a report reports in the woods when there's no one around to report it, did it really report? And the answer is yes. You're using the page break CSS. Don't get sidetracked with me anymore, please. Maybe I missed that. If sidetracking wasn't a thing, we wouldn't all be here. That's a pretty bad reason to be here. I'm gonna quit streaming now, if that's the only reason that everyone is here. I thought that we were here to uplift each other and to learn from each other and enjoy each other's company. But whatever. You said no backend logic, no junk in the trunk, allowing the browser to print. Good enough. Just remove the website Chrome. Abiel says, but I only ever use the only .NET report thing. I forgot what it's called. Was it Crystal Reports? Oh, SQL reporting services. Yeah, we do have that turned on the servers, but I don't know how to use it. So I just created web components for my reports. Thindle says, I don't say it often enough, but I agree. It is impressive. You're awesome the way you do. I appreciate that, though. Compute engine is the IaaS VM thing. Here you go. It's beautiful, and it comes in Lion. And in comes Lion. Oh, looks at their timeline and goes, hold my beer. Yeah. I used VBUC. What is VBUC? VB upgrade. something to upgrade to C#, then to Blazor in oh man, so many acronyms. Azure Open Office. I have no idea what any of those are. So I push my anime forward a bit, listening to you and unsubbing to newsletters. That too. Server-side rendering is fun too. Wait, no. SQL Server Reporting Services. SSR. SSR has so many overloaded terms too. How am I supposed... That's probably one of the reasons that I don't even bother learning acronyms. Okay, so here was my question from the beginning. Does it make sense for my user template to only care about the combination of field data type and the mappings to this upgrade companion? Okay, from mobilize.net. Yeah, I remember trying VB6 to VB.net using, it was a Visual Studio 2008 feature that had it built in. So that got me some of the way there for the VB6 applications. But we did end up creating all of the UI by hand. Recreating all of the UI, I should say. That's one thing that Jeremiah did an amazing job at. So, sorry, Jeremiah was the help desk person that went to, or that became my junior dev. He got, like, even before I got there, he had most of the forms for the VB6 apps converted from VB6 to VB.net WinForms. He did a ton of work between the time that I came here to visit the site and say hi to everyone to the time that we actually moved here and started working. It was very, very helpful. I was going to refill those. Okay, so the question still remains, does it make sense for my user import template? So the import template is the combination of target type fields. What am I trying to convert the imported data into, and the rules for mapping those fields from the imported data to the target type. That all sounds like verbiage that I should be considering the target type with. However, let's say that what just happened is that I drag and dropped a field or a file. I'm going to do that a lot. I drag and dropped a file into the application. It read the file, found the columns that are being imported, and now it's querying this is the step we're on. We're querying the database for, are there any user templates that match these fields? But because of the way this app works, the only thing I care about are user templates for this target object, for my rtrack upload model object. So what am I trying to ask? Does the user import template need a target type association? Because right now the target type association is on the mappable fields. So if I wanted to get the target type for a user import template, I would need to go through first or any field mapping object and its target type mappable field for that singular object, and that thing's target type. Deflex says to Thindle, I guess it's not compatible. So this is part of something that they were talking about for, oh, the ahead of time compilation for Blazor server. Interesting. Interesting. Thindle did say today is the greatest day of the year to unsubscribe to store newsletters, ads. Everyone sends them today, so you can just go next. And if you're using Google Gmail, they made it very easy to unsubscribe, because like at the top now in the part where they have their AI stuff now showing stuff with stuff, I'm good at saying words. They have an unsubscribe if it detects that there's an unsubscribe link. I bet you it doesn't do it for all emails that have an unsubscribe link if the email is like a sponsored, like they're paying, so that, or the company that sent the email is like, don't put that on our emails. We don't want to give people an easy way to unsub. Okay, so I'm still leaning towards yes. I do want the target type associated with the user import template. What does that even look like? What if I had a, yeah, but what happens if I don't include the navigation property? So what I was thinking was, what if I have an ignore, not mapped, since I'm in the database code first project, public string fully qualified name. Yeah, this is very close. This would be something like field mappings. Oh, sorry, field mappings dot first or default, because it's possible that there are 0 or more field mappings because we're initializing our field mappings to a new collection. Dot, why aren't you giving me intel? Okay, thank you. Target type mappable field dot target type dot fully qualified name. So this would be the path to the fully qualified target name for a given user import template. But what happens when I do a query and I do not include the navigation property for field mappings, or for target type mappable field, or for target type? And the answer is that this will be empty string. And no, I do need the target type or target mappable field. You could qualify the import based on type for the given field. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm doing here, I think. Is that? Or no, okay, so you might be saying, who cares about the target type itself? This is the other thought that I was having, which I think you're saying. Who cares about the target type stuff? If I have a set of field mappings in a template that include at least some of the file name as inputs and target type property names as outputs, Yeah, that could work. Okay, so there's an issue, another issue with this. Dagnabbit. The way that I wrote this was that I needed to be able to store the field mapping template which has a arbitrarily shaped mapping rule. It's not super arbitrary because it all conforms to this abstract class. But this is not really conducive to a database record fully. So what if... Yeah, and then I would need a way to be able to deserialize back to a mapping rule base still. Oh my gosh. I can't finish my sentences. I've gone muddy and I'm not making sense currently. Sometimes we can't English. True. Okay. So, yeah, here's what the issue was. A field mapping can have 0 or more input fields to output to one target field. And so that sounds like it should be relational database easy to do. Except that the field transformation object itself is the thing that has these transformation rules, which is fine. I don't know. Yeah, we don't care about any of the methods. What we really care about are these properties here, 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 and here. Oh my goodness, hiccups. Yeah, what would happen if I structured my database to look more like my library's models? I didn't do that from the beginning because I thought it would be easier to just take a field mapping and then serialize the entire mapping definition with all of its what fields we're using to import. But here, I think I really can create a record for the field mapping itself, for the mapping rule itself, with a discriminator being the mapping type. And then have another table that is the list of field transformations that goes with that mapping type. What? Man. This is too much for my brain to hold on to. Poor little brain. I'll do it this way. Remade models. And we'll start with, so these are all going to be the same. The imported file fields, the target type and target mappable fields. Yes, those are good. And you guys are going to be in remade models. No, that didn't work. Failed double click. Okay. So I still like these because here's a file. Here are all of the fields associated with that file. Then let's start at the actual template record. That record is going to have its ID, a GUID that we're going to share with the UI, the name of the template, description, which file it's associated with. So where do I get all of my incoming fields from for this template? What is the shape of that? That will make sure that any mapping rule that we create is guaranteed to have a matching field in the import file. Cool. Fine. Date created and created user, which I'm going to specify as a GUID now that we know we're going to be using the GUID. And this GUID is going to be the user ID from the ASP.NET Core Identity user store. The associated file that this particular template used. So this is the navigation property for the file. And that means you don't need allow null anymore because GUID is a struct. Oh, that's what happened. That's why it got the default value of new GUID 0000-00. Okay, so a template, would this be worth it though? I could put the target type fully qualified name, I think is what I've been calling it. Hey, field mapping. I mean, target mappable field. I mean, target type. Yeah, target type fully qualified name. Which again, oh, nice typing. This would actually be target type ID. So do I still want a target type table? Kind of seems like it. Oh, which I already pulled over. So target type ID with a, oh wow. With a target type navigation property. But this is going to be more like a target type hint. And the reason that I'm calling it a hint is because I might not necessarily omit using this template if it's for a different type. So like, let's say that my entire fully qualified type name is whatever the name of this library is, armits file import utility dot models dot whatever. I guess the real one that I wanted to say, the thing that I was looking for, is the one in this service called RMA lab data import service.models.rtrack upload model. So that's my type hint. But let's say that I had another type that has all of the same fields, or not even all of the same fields, that has, oh man, what is the rule for that? That has at minimum all of the fields mapped that are in the template. Yeah. Okay, and I'll show the logic for that because I think that is the direction I'm going to go. Remarks. Pre-rolls are already done. Man, it's already been an hour. What am I doing? All right, I gotta move on this, man. Okay, this is a hint for going to first check matching fields. If the, well, yeah, that doesn't belong in the database here. That belongs in the business logic. Okay, so I think I like that change. We're still going to have field mappings, but this one is going to be a bit different. And so field mappings. We'll have an ID GUID, user import template. Which field the mapping is for. Yes, so we still keep that. And then a reference to the transformation rules. Which currently doesn't exist. So again, if we look at a field or a mapping rule, so field mapping has a mapping. Oh, I guess this is what we're looking for. If we look at a particular mapping rule, we'll see that these are the things that it's guaranteed to have. What is its associated enum value? This is kind of difficult because, like, what happens when the enum value changes? What happens when I create a new rule and I'm like, I want to reorder these so that they're alphabetized, so that their enum values match up with their alphabetical name? Because that is what ends up generating the enum type for mapping rules. This thing here. And that's what puts it in this order. What happens if I delete a mapping rule, but I want to use the next number while skipping, for example, 3? I'd have to update my source generator. Unless it is in there. I thought I remembered doing that, but whatever. Point is that we wouldn't keep the same order once we store that enum value in the database. It's not guaranteed that the enum value would match that rule's name. And so the discriminator really should be the rule's name and not the enum value. Except that name is the display name. And so this would be something more like the mapping rule class name. And here I'm essentially taking the JSON serialized form with keeping types, and I'm storing the class name, for example. So the type name for the mapping rule itself to know, is this a copy rule? Is this an ignore rule? If not, I'm using a discriminator like the enum value, which again, the database doesn't know about the data import utility. It's just a standalone database that stores mappings of this type. But the other thing that the mapping rule is guaranteed to have is 0 or more source field transformations. But the thing that we would lose is if any of the transformations have additional property, or any of the mapping rules have additional properties. For example, the combine rule. Doesn't have any additional properties. The best one to show is the transformation operations. So a transformation operation has a name, a description, this is a value transformation. Interesting. A name, a description, an error message. That doesn't seem right. The transformation result is the thing that has the error messages. Anyway, and an operation detail. But the map operation also has this extra field of a list of value map. So spinning myself in circles. Anyway, thank you so much for the follows. I appreciate you. Again, I don't have names being displayed when you follow, but if you feel like chatting, then feel free to chat. Thank you so much, Inquation, for the chat, for the hi, for the hello. I hope you're doing well. We're in the middle of breaking my brain a little bit as I try to think through a good approach, an approach that is maintainable in the future for this database that is going to store mapping templates. And what I mean by mapping templates is, you're not going to be able to see it because errors. I'm just going to get rid of these. I think the only thing that I'm going to do for now, what OS is, where is, okay. Where is my DB hosted? Currently for the stream, I am doing it on my local SQL developer database, but the actual applications are in the cloud. They're on AWS. Keep reaching for that like there's water in there, but there isn't. Why not Azure? Because the company that I work for, we needed to move from on-premise to the cloud. And so we analyzed, should we go to Azure? Should we go to AWS? Should we go to IBM? Should we go to Google Cloud Services? And they made the money decision to go with AWS, as well as that's what I was familiar with at the time. That's what I was comfortable with. So it was a pretty easy move, and we had limited time. B taco. What I was going to do is just add a reference to the target type. I think because I work for Microsoft, I'm a tad bit biased. Totally okay. You are allowed to be. And looking at it, I don't know. Well, one, I don't know Azure well enough to know how I would have architected it differently than how we're doing it on AWS. But two, it would have taken me a lot of time to figure out how to get it all deployed and publish my apps, because we have a lot of moving parts and pieces for the applications. It's more than just this one utility library that I'm working on right now. We have, I'll just count them again. All of our applications were running on Apache or IBM WebSphere, I guess, because they were JSP apps, and I needed to turn them into Microsoft applications, so I turned them into MVC applications. I was familiar with using IIS at the time. Kestrel wasn't really all that big of a way to deploy applications, and I wasn't very familiar with .NET Core either. I was still on .NET Framework. Thankfully, the database was SQL already. I didn't need to do anything with the database except point the applications to it and make them work. But so we have a whole bunch of web applications running in IBM WebSphere that I just moved over to be applications in IIS on our local servers, because we had a local Microsoft server, well, many local Microsoft servers. And I lost my train because there are trains. Oh, and so we have all of these applications. I'm familiar with IIS. I'm publishing them to IIS. I'm giving them certificates. I'm doing all the things I know how to do with IIS, and our users are using them and they're happy. Then they say we need to get all of our apps off of on premise and move them to the cloud. And I'm like, I know AWS, but we can price the other ones. And with AWS, I knew that we could use EC2 instances that pretty much act like servers. So we could pretty much mimic our on-premise situation, except put them in the cloud. So I have 4 EC2 instances, and they're all used for different things. We have an ArcGIS server, we have file servers, we have web application servers, we have DT search, which is an indexing utility. We have RabbitMQ for sending messages. Yeah, I did lift and shift, but I also modernized at the same time. So pretty much took our architecture that we had on premise and set it up on AWS on EC2 instances. But then Blazor came out. And so I started doing things a bit differently, still using IIS, but now I have the option of using Kestrel. So if I wanted to, and if I learned how, I could have a Linux server that hosts the web applications as Kestrel applications. I still need the file server. I still need the database servers or RDS, doesn't matter. And I need something to run ArcGIS server. And something for the messaging, the messaging queue, and DT search for now. Yeah. So there's still a lot of other moving parts and pieces that I only knew how to lift and shift, take from our current server installations and put them on another Windows Server installation. Yeah, these are, like, a lot of these are the applications. My component library. So this is a web app. This used to be a desktop app. This is a web app. No longer using web app, web app, web app, web app used, or currently desktop still. Desktop app, web app, web app. Web app used to be desktop app. So 3 desktop apps and however many web apps. And I'm a solo dev, by the way. I am working on all of these projects by myself, so don't really have the luxury of being like, you there, go work on converting this app, or figuring out how to deploy this to an Elastic Beanstalk, or change the API to be Azure App Functions, or whatever. So what was the thing that I was doing? I was saying yeah with deflux. Actually, yay with deflux. I was going to add into my user import template database entity, which this goes back to being virtual, a target type hint. Not required. No, what am I doing? I'm just copying the thing right above. Change this to a GUID. So this is all code first, which means that I can make the changes to the models, and then I'll write a migration, or add a migration, so that it'll make the changes to the database. So public GUID create user, taco, 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 bacon, french fries, toast. Public int target type hint ID get set. This goes below everything else. Public virtual target type. So I make the navigation properties nullable, but I don't think I want to make this one nullable. In fact, it isn't nullable. The file import template ID is required. The thing is that it's not always going to be populated from an entity framework query. It's a lot of stuff. Oops, you're not the one that. Oh, right. And then we can get rid of this. Since it's a struct, it's non-nullable by default, unless I explicitly say it's nullable. All right, so that would be my update to the user import template, so that when we do our lookup, actually, let's apply the migration first, even though there's going to be more changes that I'm going to make most likely later. But this will make it easier because I need to go back and now fix my upsert test. So how do we do that? We do an add migration, add target type to upload template. Perfect naming. I just write a 10-page essay on what it is that I'm doing and call that my migration. Good to go. Oh, you can do it. No, build failed. Right, because the created by I need to put created by all the way up. Oh, right. Right. That should be fine. That should be okay. What are you angry about though? You do have a matching parameter. No, you don't. The user who created the template. Okay, that makes you enum. Why are you null, potentially? How are you potentially returning null? Current matching file. If current matching file is null, create a new one. So no, you will never return null. Fixed. Right, and then we need to go to the thing that calls you, because user ID here would be good. Maybe I can make a helper method for that. User ID GUID. User GUID is going to be a GUID from GUID.parse. Is there a try parse on GUID? There is. Perfect. Okay, so GUID.tryParse string.empty out var UG as in user GUID, and if that works, then we will return UG. Otherwise, we will return null. Cool. So now we have an easy way to get the user's GUID from the context, and we know it's going to be a GUID because the user identity database user store always is using a GUID for the user ID. Oh, I don't need to do that because we're doing the check here. So if not user GUID.hasValue. Oh, I guess I still do need the dot value here. Poop. So that works. Same thing here. We're going to use user GUID has value. Do you has value? I love the dancing gummy bear. Okay, so that's good. We added this field to the database. We now made it to where the application can build without failing. So we are going to add the migration. And what I'm most likely going to do is, because this is the first pass of creating the database, is now I'm mixing data and data, and I'm saying data. The database with the application logic, essentially. Can't convert string to GUID. Oh, yeah. I need to come back to that in a second. I'll do it this way. The identity. Interesting. What am I trying to do? I'm trying to do GUID.newGUID so that we can build, so that I can do the migration. I was saying a thing and then I interrupted myself again. I really got to stop doing that. I know you couldn't copy because I'm running the app. What was I thinking? Yeah, I need to figure out how I am getting the user ID from here, from claims, obviously. From claims. When I use date time UTC, it is supposed to be UTC now. This is a test. So when I store stuff into the database, I do use UTC now. You're absolutely right. This was one of those things where Copilot may have given me this, the new user, and then I updated a couple of strings in it. But yeah, when I store in the database, it's definitely in UTC only, ever. Thank you for catching that. Okay, now I'm going back and forth. Did we actually build? The answer is 12. Potentially 12, maybe 12. Overridden, 13. Okay, good. Adding the migration. Oh, that's what I was saying. Because I'm just now creating the database and setting everything up, and I'm going to be making a lot of changes as we go, I'll probably end up deleting all of my migrations and starting my database over from scratch. Okay, so let's get the actual rock out of here. I'm actually going to do it more easierly. I'm going to do it like this. This is my valid user. Public static GUID user ID is going to be, no, it's not names identifier though. I'm going to do it even easier. I was trying to do it easier, but it wouldn't let me. So this is going to be get only, and we're going to set it to GUID.new GUID. This is going to use that user ID .toString. Oh, right. Valid user ID. Okay. And now you're just going to be valid user ID. All right. Anyone else want to complain at me? If you do, speak now and forever hold your peace. Because you can do both. I believe in you. So we're back at the service. Oh, right. That's what the whole reason that I was updating that. I've updated the database, and so now, since we rebuilt, our tests should have rerun, and our upsert should fail currently. Because the target type ID is what I added to this logic. And so we can see that, yes, it indeed did fail. And the reason that it failed was because sequence contains no elements. Probably in my error messages. Really? No, I have error messages. Yeah, so it was actually a sequence contains no elements error in the actual logic, not in my test. Thank goodness. I would have been sad. So let's find out what line of my test is now broken. Line number 45 for base authenticated. I don't have a claim for the user ID. No, I thought that I copied the line number. Test. That's what I'm looking for that I can't find. Where's my test explorer? Line 45. Hard for me to click on anything ever. Server, base authenticated service. Line 45 is here. So it's saying that it can't find, yeah, so you need to be first or default. It can't find sup. Because in my test mockup, I am using name identifier. That's a common name. The issue is that that's not the name that it has in my claims. And why not? Is it because of my persisting authentication validating state thing? This thing here, persisting server authentication state provider. Oh, persisting revalidating. I think I am also using the revalid. I'm using whatever it's scaffolded with. Oh, but yeah, that's client, right? Oops, I missed. No, whatever. I'm using whatever it scaffolded the app with. But the thing that's happening is that my user ID is using user ID claims type. So where is this options coming from? Options accessor, which is identity options. I'm specifying? That doesn't make sense to me. Yeah. Okay, so by default, it is using claims type.name identifier. Because I didn't change this, I didn't set it differently. I'm going to try that and see what happens. Okay, what do you say now, test? Are you still going to be angry that you can't find a user ID? And isn't this supposed to be inside of my try catch? It is, and it is getting caught, but I'm not handling this specific error. That would be one of those situations where I probably should write an error handler specifically for Scott's like specifically for no matching sequence. Yay, and it passes. Okay, so we made a change to the database that affected our lab data import. That broke one of our tests, so we went back to the method that that test was for. We fixed the method. Yay, TDD. All right, so we still have these two errors because I have not fully implemented these two functions yet. But we will finish shortly. So right now we are implementing this thing. Oh, right. Because I made those changes, the safest thing to do now would be let's stage our database changes. Yeah, this is how verbose I get. This is bad. This is why I'm starting to let Copilot just write all of my commit messages for me. Upload user import template. Does staging mean you select a chunk of files to commit? Yes, exactly. So the only files that will be going in this commit are the ones associated with my database. Well, not anymore, but associated with my database. Then the next one that I like to do is my changes. Oh man, did the changes that I made to the test depend on changes to any of my models? Right, the name, oh man. The name of model field mapping definitely is going to need to get committed at the same time that I do the changes that I made to the tests. Oh, but I didn't actually update the test itself. I updated the service to account for the changes made to the database. So let's go ahead and grab this. Imported data file, I'm pretty sure. Doesn't care. That was just some... Oh, yes, it does, because that's part of the field mapping rename. Field mapping rename. Field mapping rename. Field mapping rename. I just push all stuff. Field mapping rename. Man, field mapping is in a lot of stuff. So if you couldn't tell, the most important thing that this application does is maps fields from one shape to another. So it's kind of like AutoMapper, I guess. Which kind of begs the question, could I have done this easier if I just used AutoMapper? Probably not, because there's still these complex rules that a user would need to specify at runtime for how to transform the values from a source field to a target field. And that needs to be persisted in the database. And why are you saying you have changes when you don't? Stage. Jiminy. Yeah, so pretty much everything else is related to this field mapping model change. Updated. Absurd logic. Okay, done. So let's finish implementing this. Now that I have a way to see the target type. But I'm still wondering. We'll let this lazy load. I'm still wondering whether I truly care about sticking to the target type. Aha. I was going to give them like a preference. So when I'm searching for what templates might apply to this import file, I'm providing a target type hint. That target type hint will tell me what fields are included in that target type. But I'm not actually specifying the list of properties. So what I'm going to do is grab all templates that have that source field list. So if hello Dilly Millie, if I picked a file, oh, it's not going to show anymore because I stopped the app. If I have a list of fields that look like these from this file, then give me back all templates that I created that target this file, regardless of what my target type is. However, use the target type to give priority to the templates in the UI. But I'm going to give you all templates that use that shape of import file. Yeah. Wait, created user is a GUID. Oh, because this is user GUID. Yeah. Good. You're doing good. You're missing some commas or parentheses and stuff, so you're not going to let me continue until we do that. So this is going to be target type, target fully qualified name. Foo. Wait, why don't you like this so far? You should be giving me IntelliSense, even though you're not well formed. Oh, because where did my select go? That's what happened. That was very weird. I don't remember deleting the select. But whatever. Apparently I did. I think that SQL would complain at me for this. This is linked to entities, which means that I can't use null propagation nor ternary operators. Is that what this one is? Null coalescing? Null coalescing operators. I can't use null propagation nor null coalescing. Scott knew. So I have to do a null check, and not only that, but I can't use object null checks either. So I can't do is null. I have to do equals null Yeah, I'm gonna let it go. I'll write it out afterwards because there's gonna be more. It's either that target type is null or target type dot fully qualified name is empty. Except that fully qualified name is never going to be null. Never mind. Never mind. So it's only going to be those two things. But I'm going to still try it with the null propagation and null coalescing. But I think it's going to be angry at that. This is the ternary operator, right? Yes. Naming things. I mean, the names of things. In your model field mapping. Okay, so then for each field mapping that we're getting back, are you correct? You're not correct. You're not even close. Actually, you are kind of close. Right. So again, we're going to let this lazy load. It should be fine. There aren't going to be very many records, but if I wanted to up front, I could say include field mappings, then include target type, so that all of these objects are loaded beforehand, and when it's ready to actually pull the values, then we're ready for it. Oh, which also means that we would need target type. Just target type. Thanks. Oh, that one I don't know how to do. Is there, and this is me manually indenting just because it makes sense for me to see that. Can I do a then include target type? Yes. Yes, I can. And there's going to be a, oh man. That was y'all's thing. Dinks, Donka giving. Took me a second to figure out what you were saying. Mine was fantastic. I took the day off of work. Ended up just playing Hogwarts all day long, all during my normal workday time. Well, no, actually all day long. Scott's like, I don't do that kind of stuff. I mean, I don't do that stuff. So my celebration of it was I had my normal workday, but instead of doing work, I played a video game, and then I went and cooked. And for dinner, we had a regular Blue Apron meal, which regular. This time it was sirloin steak with handmade biscuits. I mean, from scratch biscuits, I think is what they call them. Scratch biscuits that were super duper tasty. Broccoli, and then we had some potatoes left over from this breakfast thing, and I cooked the potatoes, mashed them up. And there was this really good pan sauce for the steaks. I sliced them into beefsteak style steaks. Anyway, that's what I had for Thanksgiving dinner. I guess Thanksgiving dinner. But for me, Thanksgiving is every day. Yeah, I know. I was like, I know that I really don't need this. I was just explaining that I could do this, and then I left it up there because I started talking about food, and I love talking about food. Field type name is not. Field type string is not settable. What I think I'm gonna do is this. Private string field type string. And it may look like I'm about to make a looping recursive looping loop, but I'm not, I promise. Field type string. So up here I have field type that I'm using throughout the application. I'm using the actual type because there are times when I want to get the properties off of this type and I don't always want to go type of field mapping or whatever and get the properties. Although I could take it another step forward and manually write out all of the property types so that I don't have to use reflection at runtime, since my target type is never going to change. And yeah, I could use source generation so that if I do change the model, then the class or the private static or const or whatever list of property types, whatever. You know what I'm trying to get at. Never changes. So anyway, because this is type, it doesn't serialize, or at least I don't know how to get types to serialize using Newtonsoft. So instead, I have a file type string that I am using on the server side, since it's going into the database as a string anyway. Yeah. So the way that I'm doing that is when I populate the type as type on the client side, then it also populates the field type string. But if I populate the field type string, what I am wanting to do is convert it to the actual type. No, not get type. Oh, yes, get type. Type, get type. And then if type is not null and, oh wait, if type is null or type is equal to field type already, then do nothing. Otherwise, set field type to that type. Then up here, if field type string is equal to field type dot to string, which, because I'm doing this twice, what is going on? How are you? What is the dealie, yo-yo? Oops. Let's do this here. Hi, Big Amy. I was a little bit brain-involved. Okay. So if the field type string already matches, then do nothing else after this point. I am fine, thank you for asking. Awesome, glad to hear. D equals in the German language. Oh yeah. I kind of remember that. It's been a while. So it's subtle, like think, but not thanks. Fun fact. And other dinner sounds pretty good. Oh, that dinner sounds pretty good. Yeah, it was super tasty. The sauce that they had us make was fantastic. That went straight through the target. I saw it. One day, Big Amy. One day. Oh man, my finger was not pushing the right buttons, or not in the right place. Okay. When we set field type, we're also going to set the field type string. when we set field type string, we're also going to set field type, but only if the values don't already match. That will avoid any kind of looping and infinite looping, and we'll be good to go. That said, when I set field type string here, then everything will be fine. How's my Friday been? I've been a little bit all over the place, and I do apologize to the viewers that are sticking around for it. I don't want to be all over the place, but still productive overall. You can, in selects, really. I remember having lots and lots of issues with that, but I'll try it. Try it. Oops. Man, as soon as I remember how to actually type. Yeah, here's the thing though. At this point in time, I know that if I'm loading a field mapping, it will have, and I thought we just changed that to where the navigation property is not nullable. That might need a new migration. Oh, null forgiveness. I'm sorry. Yes, I do know that you can use null forgiveness. And then the target type is not nullable either. Because target type ID must exist, blah, 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 blah. All right. So that cleans that up. You are non-nullable. Thank you. Okay. Now what other properties am I missing? The mapping rule. All right. This is where it's going to be difficult, because I have the mapping rule currently as a JSON string stored in the database. And it also looks like I'm missing a... Thank you, Bikini. It's exactly what I needed in order to keep going with the momentum and the... Here's a wall for you, you know? You're starting to move forward. Let's just stop that. We can't have that. I'm kidding. Thank you so much for the bits, Bikini. I really, really, really appreciate you. It does help me wake up. Gives me some energy. Progress is iterated. So the spelling. My field mapping does have a field that I want to track in the database, which is whether or not this particular field mapping is required. So for a given object, I'm leaving it up to the developer to say, when you're targeting an RTrack upload model, you can use the required data annotation, or you can use the required what are they called? Keyword. You can use the required keyword, or you can manually provide a list of required fields to the library to say, in order for this to be a valid record that can be mapped, these fields are required to have a mapping. So I want to save that to the database as well. Required field is required. No, you're just missing an XML comment. Okay, so we added some more things to the whatever this is called, database model. And we are now updating the server service so that we can capture the required field when we are upserting the record. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Where are we doing fields? That's target type. That's target fields. That's missing target fields. Add missing fields. Acquired. This is the update existing. Do you have an option on using is in front of all bool names? I mean, I can. Or do I have an opinion? Gosh, I can read. I promise I can read, just not today. Do I have an opinion on using is in front of all bool names? So for example, is required. I don't have an issue with it, but verb names to me are methods. And yes, properties are just getter and setter methods, or just getters, or get in it, and all that stuff. So technically, the required property is a method or a function. So it should be a verb, right? However, it's more of an adjective or because it's a property. The sentence I would tell myself is the required property of this field mapping is set to true, false, versus I am calling the is required method to get back whether this is required or not. So my opinion is that the Boolean used as a property or as a variable or as a field can be adjective, or I don't think adjective is the right word I'm looking for. It's a descriptor. It's not a verb. And is required, again, is that really a verb? Is one of those special verb. Hello, crap team. Yeah, so it makes sense to you. But again, I am absolutely okay with requiring in whatever code base if I was on a team and they were like, all of your Boolean variables must be is whatever the thing is. That way you know the proper interpretation of what it means if that thing is set to true versus false. An example of me violating this is in my response model, I've taken to calling my error was error. And in this case, it's because I treat this as a single method. Since it's not a full property, it's a getter only, then this is like, give me the state of, was this an error? Here's some logic for determining that, as opposed to give me the value of the property. So I don't know. It makes sense to me, but I'm not angry either way. I'm never angry, except for all the time. When is the day we can ask complex questions? Fridays between 10:30 a.m. and 12:30 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, or Mountain Time, which is UTC-7, and it's currently 2 hours past that. 2 hours and 15 minutes past that. However, you can ask any day that you want. So you can ask right now, aka Community Day. So you can ask right now. I may or may not give you an answer. I most likely will give you an answer, but it won't be as in-depth or thought out as had it been during the actual Community Day theme. There's also Discord. Deflex will look at it if it's Blazor/.NET related. Okay. The service is where I wanted to go. This is the service. I just updated the service to add the required to the database. Let's run the, can't run the test again yet. This is really hard working in just one panel. I usually have 2 panels at minimum. Crap. Yeah. Oops. What am I doing? I got quiet again. I'm doing the thing. So here's the difficulty part for me. Mapping rule JSON, which is going to be JSON ignore, of course, is going to be the mapping rule serialized to JSON in a very specific way, which is Newtonsoft, I guess JSON convert. JSON convert serialized object mapping rule with my default Newtonsoft serializer settings, but I don't have Newtonsoft installed in the armids file import utility because I didn't want to put a dependency on it. Man. I don't do JSON serializer because of not being able to tell it to the type handling. How do I word that? The type handling. It doesn't do type handling. It doesn't keep the concrete class name with the serialized object. At least I haven't figured out how to do that. So I did end up writing a custom serializer for what? What did I write the custom serializer for? Sorry, custom converter for mapping rule. Just kidding. We're using JSON serialize. Base items can be added using another person. Wait, you're supposed to tell me what the red squiggly is. Only assignment call, increment, decrement, await, and new object expressions can be used as statements. So you can't use a ternary operator. I think that's what that's telling me.
We don't need to print the internet.
Oh. And we do need to print the internet. Okay. Yes, and I remember why I wrote the serializer for the custom converter for mapping rule, and that's because the fast endpoints, you can't tell it how which JSON serializer to use in requests. What's going on, Tindo? I'm back. Welcome back. Okay, so I'm going to set the mapping rule JSON, but that's still not going to work. Because again, link to entities. However, I can do this in link to objects at this point. Let's just turn this into link to objects. Okay, so now we can do all the things. We don't even have to worry about this because the null coalescing operator and the null the other one that I was saying the whole time will work in link to objects. So this is where I might actually need to do the includes. Yeah. Scott says too. But the cool thing is that these objects are relatively small, and I am using them anyway, so they would need to be loaded. So it's not like I am taking up a lot of memory by asking for the full object. Man, that's still a lot of fields. That's a lot more fields than I... Oh wait, that's the user import template. A field mapping, for example. Yes. Oh, including the... Well, yeah, that makes sense. Have you split queries enabled on your DB context? Not purposefully. If I recall, isn't that the default currently? It's not default. We can definitely do it on this one request. Come on, Copilot. Yeah, this is the one. No, it's not target type fields. It's just target type. What am I doing? Just target type. I was going to say this is the one that might cause a lot of overhead, but yeah, no. It'll be fine. Everything's fine. We're fine. And you're angry because this isn't IEnumerable? You must be a list. Yeah, I can't change IEnumerable to list. So we have to list it. I don't know, man. Return object is a list of user import template model. Truth. That's what we should be getting in the end. Oh, except that you are also not a list. And the reason that I am doing list, why is that? is because I cannot guarantee that by the time I exit this method that it will have finished evaluating this query. So if I left it as, oh, no, that's not even the case. It would have been that my return object would have contained the query, but I am materializing the query here. So that's no longer an issue. So the response really could be an IEnumerable, because that can be processed at any point in time, since I'm no longer needing the DB context by the time this part of my link runs. Okay, I think we're done implementing the thing. I'm building because my test is already in existence, and I checked the checkbox for run test after build. This thing should run, and then we should see this turn into a green check mark. It's just gonna work. Oh, duh. I can't just willy-nilly change method signatures. You gotta update the interface. You gotta update all of the implementations. You gotta do the okay, try that again. All right, let's ask the internet while we're waiting. EF core is split query default. Since it may cause performance issues, EF core generates a warning whenever the following conditions are met. When using split queries with skip take, doesn't apply any ordering. So yeah, it looks like you have to configure them in options. Okay, so what are the benefits of using split queries? Yeah, it would be better to opt out of split queries when I see that I'm in a situation that would benefit from a single query than it is to opt into split queries every single time that I have a join, which is all the time. So let's go ahead and configure that. Here. Which means that you are now method body. Cool. You guys don't chain, right? Oh, they do chain because it's a builder. I love builders. The Boxy Bear. How's it going? Okay. If your connection to the database is slow to reach, then single is better. That's as far as I remember about it. When you do lots of include, split queries is faster and prevents Cartesian explosion, which happened a lot when I was first converting all of the other stuff. Because like I said, the original apps being JSP VB6, they were using either Microsoft SQL Client or OJDBC, JDBC for their SQL connectors. And I wanted to use Entity Framework because I had started playing with Entity Framework and I'm like, this is the best thing ever when working with databases. Hey, it built. Right, so the test should have run and we're still getting errors for find user template. Value was null. That means it didn't find the template that we were looking for. So let's figure out why that is. After we do the target type database stuff. Copilot, help me out here. I'm too verbose. Add required property and update nullability attributes. Oh, and add required. Cool. Stage. Okay, then we're just going to do it. I'm going to commit this as implemented find upload method. Even though it's not implemented well, we are erroring, we're failing our test. We're going to fix that right now. So let's do some debugging our test to figure out at which point. Is it at the current matching file is null? In which case, I do need a test for find matching import file. And the question is it null because my in-memory DB wasn't persisting the data? Or is it null because it doesn't like me? I think it's the latter. Okay, so we're debugging this. I think we're debugging this if I push the right keystrokes. We got this. It's gonna work. Aha, so it could not find a matching set of records, essentially. So let's see what our imported fields are. We have two of them. They are fields 1 and field 2. Field 2 is an int32. Field 1 is a string. So we're going to... Does anyone have any opinions / recommendations for should I just go in and debug the find matching import field file, whatever, or should I start writing tests on that? C-Films! C-Films! C-Films already answered. Did I already say hi to you, C-Films? Anyway, C-Films already answered and said, I'm doing great. How are you doing? I'm doing fantastic. Scott says, I don't do testing. My gut is telling me that I should write a test on this. But since we're already in the process of debugging this method, I am doing a TDD hybrid. So I don't like saying that I am following one particular thing in case I don't feel like doing it at that point in time. Since I'm a solo developer, that works. If I was on a team, then I would commit to, if the team is doing TDD, I'm doing TDD, no questions asked. As a solo developer, I'm really only targeting the things that I know are going to be problematic, or that I think are going to be problematic. And then if I run into something else that is being problematic, then maybe I'll write a test on it. But for example, this test that we're debugging now, I wrote before implementing the method. We're going to have another one that we'll fill in the details for, that I'm going to write before we implement the method. But that was kind of my question. It's like, I probably should have written tests for every single one of these individual database helper methods, essentially. But I keep making the excuse that I'm trying to get this product out and completed before too long. Like, it'd be nice if I got it done today, but that's not going to happen. So before Christmas is what I'm aiming for. This was probably supposed to have been finished a month and a half ago. Okay, so these are our import field names, which is field 1 dash. Yeah, field 1 dash type name, field 2 dash type name. And we're searching the database for any imported files whose fields include you know what I'm trying to say. So we do have candidate fields. We have field 1 and field 2. And again, remember, this is our test database. So this is an in-memory database, which is telling us that it did persist the seeded data. And now we're checking to see, are the fields we're providing through this imported record field descriptors set the same set as what we got back from the database? And so I'm hashing the ones that we got back, or that we're providing from the application. And now I am comparing it to the 2 fields that we got back from the database. And they match. Otherwise, we would have hit continue. Oh. Wait, no, that doesn't make sense at all. My import... Thank you, Big Gamey. I love that sound. This doesn't make sense at all. Does it? I don't know, man. Context dot import file to list. Imported file? Imported file. Thank you so much for the, what is that? Follow. I do have, oh, come on. I don't show the names for new followers in case you just want to hang about and, you know, not get called on or drilled with a million billion questions. Data file import template context does not contain a definition for imported file. Yes, it does. Oh, imported files. The DB set is imported files. There are 2 imported files. File number 1 has an ID of 1. The records, the fields that we got back during this candidate check, both have an imported file ID of 1. And look here, the imported file is populated. Is it when I do group by? Okay. We know that these 2 sets of fields match. And it's telling me that candidate group field 1 dot first dot imported file is null. But if I look at candidate fields, it's null. It's not populated. Even though I told it up front that I want it to load the imported file records. Oh man, and I don't need that then includes because it's right here. So why isn't it evaluating my query and giving me back the join or the navigation properties? Is foreign key set properly? It has to be. The way that I create this record is I seed. It's a good thing to look at. I'll definitely check. Here, seed import files is like this. I have a new import file, and then I am creating a list of import file fields to be associated with that one import file, which means that it must be populating the foreign key field with the imported file ID for the child import file fields. And we can see that is true. So hard. We can see that is true because our candidate fields both have an import file ID of 1. So this is the foreign key. This is the navigation property. But here's what I saw though. When I ran the query, I am awaiting it, right? Okay. When I ran the query in the watch area, now when I check my candidate fields, the imported file record is populated. The navigation property is populated. just out of curiosity, if I make this a single query, well, it's going to be hard to tell now because it was already pre-populated before. So let's just continue and restart the test debug. And it's still erroring, and I think I know why. I don't think I associated the import file field with the new import record. Or something about the user that created it. I don't think I'm using the same username. Okay, so if we look at you now, okay, it's still null even if I do as single query. So I don't understand why this is not evaluating the navigation property when I am explicitly including the navigation property. I have another idea. Instead of trying to fight with navigation properties in that way, what would happen if, and this is a big if, what would happen if we are querying the imported files? Oh. Then I would need to do .where any, so like x dot imported fields dot any, and then I would get more than I want, and there'd be lots and lots of issues doing it this way. This should work. Why isn't it not populating my navigation property? Yeah, here is the actual foreign key configuration then. My import file field object, which is the many side of the one-to-many relationship, has an imported file ID and a navigation property called public virtual imported file, which is not nullable. That's probably one of the issues right there. So anyway, that's the many side of the relationship. On the imported file side, it has an I collection of imported file fields. Oh, and I use Fluent API. So Scott is saying I don't use Fluent API. I definitely do, and I have for everything, and I like how it looks better. But just to show the configuration of the API of using Fluent API, here's my imported file field. Has one imported file with many imported file fields with a foreign key of imported file ID. Imported file has many imported file fields with one imported file using the imported file ID on the related table. So it's how I've always set it up. It's never caused me issues before. My guess was the nullability of the imported file record. So I'm just going to give it a run like that. Maybe. Gosh, I thought I would make it further than this. I thought I would get both of our user template things done. Okay, take me here. C-Film says, if you have an issue, you might need a tissue. Maybe. It has been a long time since I've cried, and I'm kind of sad about that. Funnily enough. We can get rid of this breakpoint now. And it's so weird, like I get close to crying, like I get this feeling, this welled up feeling like I'm gonna cry, and then I consciously try to let it cry, and then I somehow still pull it back and end up not crying. It's kind of annoying. I would really like to just be able to cry every now and then, you know? Not whine, just cry. Just cry. Yeah, so it's still not populating. It does populate if I run a query outside. This is what's the most strange to me, is that it does populate if I run a query again. I just changed this one to as single. Is that kind of the same? Or do you still think I should remove the global? Yeah, so we'll just run it one more time with this. Give that a test. Haha, because these are tests. Do you get it? Do you get it? Yeah. Should, or at least I hoped it would. Okay, and now with that, it's still null. And then I run this. And it's populated. That should not be a thing, man. Well, okay. I know how to at least get that's telling me, number one, that I need to write tests for this method. Number two, at least during the testing of the method that I care about right now, I have a way to get the imported file, not null, back. And so we should now hit this, and this is where I should also have a non-null. But what is actually happening is that we're getting 0 records back. Because I don't have any file import templates, file import template IDs associated with my user import template ID. You threw an exception of object disposed because I made it to the end of the method. Ops. So what I'm going to do, at least to fix this test, is every time that I try it, I'm going to run the query for the import file. That gives me an import file. It's just so weird. Oh, you know what? Also, Scott, you know what I just realized? The DB context that this is using is not the same configuration as the DB context for the sample application. This is an in-memory database, which again, that's where I start feeling like, what am I testing here? What am I debugging? So for the test library, my DB context comes from DB Context Factory. My DB Context Factory just uses a mock database using mock, MOQ, and entity framework.test.mock. So that's what this is. This is a mock of my DB context. And here is my configuration for this mock. So here I could do use split. Yeah, I don't think I can do use split query for in-memory database, which I think would actually be here. I mean, I still am doing that. It's just that I'm using in-memory database. Yeah, so I'm using in-memory database. And if I don't use this other entity framework dot test entity framework core dot test dot mock, then I get errors when it comes to some of the queries. I forget which queries it was, but some of the operation. Oh, transactions. That's the biggest one. I do context.database.create transaction, and it can't mock the database facade is the error that I get. And so the easiest way to restore some of the SQL-like functionality was to use this entity framework core.tests.mock method called create.mockedDBContext4. And so what that does is it takes an in-memory database, lets the in-memory database do all of the stuff that it supports, but then mocks all of the methods that it doesn't support. And maybe that's what we're running into here. So again, what am I testing? What I probably should do for the mock. Yeah. And again, this conversation, the words that you typed out, they definitely get me thinking. And what we could do is what we could do is mock the DB set for, oh, but that's still per DB context. What I was going to say is when we set up the mock for our in-memory database, one of the things that I could mock is this. Yeah. Is the DB set for... This is really hard for me to think through. What's the name of the DB set? File, import files. And then always have this return the concrete list of import files. But I still don't know how to do the setup where I'm asking for import fields. And I need the associated import files. It's too much. It's too much. This is why I don't like testing. It's stupid to say, but I don't like writing tests because I take what feels like a lot longer figuring out how to make these things work than I do write code, test it out in my sample app, debug it that way. Not much of a case for writing tests, is it? But anyway, where are we? We are looking for, I'm almost done for the day, by the way. We're looking for database helpers, but for the actual library. So now we have a matching file. And the thing that I want to see is, does my user template ID have an import file ID of 1? My guess is it's 0. No, it has a 1. Ah, what is your created user ID? Whatever this says. Like, why can't we copy this to text anymore? There used to be a button that you could push that turned a GUID into a string. And you could just push that one button to copy it to your clipboard. Aha. Aha. There's my issue. My user GUID, even though I provided a HTTP context factory, is still telling me that my user GUID is 00000. Oh, which I kind of suspected. Yeah, so if you missed that part, let me do this real quick. Since this library is a service that I intend to be run on a server, I still have the option of accessing the methods directly. So let's say that the application started in Blazor server, never downloaded the WASM components and stuff, and it injected the lab data server service only. Then I could call this method directly, but I need a way to get the user on the server so that when I'm looking up user IDs, I'm not expecting the client to give it to me, and I'm not expecting some external way to give it to me for this standalone library. So what I'm doing is I'm expecting a HTTP context factory to come into the method so that I can get the DB context from that, or not the DB context, the HTTP context from that factory, which I can get the user claims principal from that factory, which I can get the identity from that user claims principal, which I can get roles and stuff. Or I guess the roles come from the user claims principal, but identity gives me their name. The ID comes from that user claims principal. So my HTTP context mock is not doing what I'm expecting it to. And again, now I'm working on the, and here, yeah, I'm creating my valid user. I'm creating a new HTTP context mock with a valid user where I'm setting up user to return my claims principal if claims principal is not null. Yeah, so we only populate the HTTP context with a user if I have provided user claims. And that is what I'm doing right here. my valid HTTP context mock is this HTTP context with a valid user, which is specified up here. So if I go to my base authenticated service, I'm going to put a breakpoint here because maybe now what I'm testing is my HTTP context, my base authenticated service. Oh, I gotta stop though. So as soon as I run this last time and just check the HTTP context user to see if there are any claims on it. There are 3 claims. One of them is the name identifier claim, but it is using GUID 00000. Why? I changed it to sub when I was reading it back, but the mock setup should have still been using the right one. So valid user, which is GUID.newGUID. So one more thing to check is this. And I promise this will be, I'm promising myself, by the way, you guys are fine. This will be the last time that I try running this test. You are absolutely right, Scott. My mock has claims type name identifier, which is what it had before on the HTTP context thing. With claims is not null. The claims that I am adding are, yeah, there it is. The value in my name identifier is still populating as 0000000. Why? When my current valid user has a valid user ID of not 00000. Yeah, so here's what I'm looking at. Valid user ID is this. Valid user has the name's identifier claim, but it has a GUID of zeros. New claim, do you just take an object? You take a string value. Yeah, so that's going to be my next search is, and it's going to be on Monday. Good luck fixing your issue. Thank you. Determine why this is populating with default GUID. Search for creating a new claims principle with new claims. Identity. Setting claim types name identifier. So what I think may be happening is that there's something about how claims principles are created where you can't manually set the name identifier or something. I don't know. Or I'm setting it incorrectly. Maybe there's like another method that I need to use in order to access the name identifier claim or add the name identifier claim to this claims principle. So I'll do some searching on that. Oh, try GUID.NewGUID in here, which isn't going to be super helpful for me, but it is something to try. Because I do need the actual user ID. Yeah, I'm going to need the new user ID. Yeah. I know you know. I'm sorry. Gomenazai. It's definitely a good thing to try. I'll try it. Trying it now. But I do need to stop very soon. Okay. Claims. Claims. And we did get that. You're on to something. Okay, so you answered this question. Can you set the name identifier? And the answer is yes, but this is not being read as a property here. What's probably happening is valid user is happening first, and valid user at this point in time has default GUID.default or whatever it's called. I'm doing it. I haven't stopped. Good. Valid user ID. If valid user ID equals GUID.empty, then set it equal to GUID new GUID, return valid user. And the dumb thing that I'm going to do, well, I don't know that it's dumb. I don't mean to say that. I am getting a little tired, so I'm going to say thoughtless things. I apologize ahead of time. The thing that I'm going to do with this is on get, but I really need this to be set once. Yeah. Actually, I have an easier way to do it. Okay. The way that I'm going to do this, and I'll move this where it belongs in a second, but I'm going to keep it here so we can see everything together. I think it is timing. I think you're right. is have a public static claims principal get valid user. And we're going to specify the GUID for that valid user. Are we? Or not? Maybe. GUID. GUID. I just don't want to be able to change this between tests. So yeah, we're just going to use this. Get valid user. And then we're going to have a private static claims principal valid user. You're always going to return valid user. Get valid user. Okay. So if valid user ID, or gosh. Private set. Okay. Okay. If you couldn't tell, what I'm trying to do here is manipulate the timing so that I control when these objects are populated. Private static GUID valid user ID. All right. If not valid user ID has value, okay, cool. And we set valid user ID, and you will always return valid user ID get valid user dot claims claim name type. Thank you. Name types dot name identifier value. Okay, so we set the valid user ID and then set valid user equal to a question mark new claims principal with the stuff that we had before that I deleted. Poop. And now we can use a collection initializer. Which I guess means that we can just do this as well. Hopefully that fixes my... Dude, I'm initializing it here. What are you doing? Oh. Thank you again. Thank you again. You're paying more attention than I am. Return valid user. Okay, then we can get rid of this. Okay, so our valid user is going to initialize, if this is our first time accessing valid user, it will also initialize the user GUID if one doesn't exist. Yeah, the end. So if I still have my breakpoint here, run our test, we should have a claims principal that has a user with a valid GUID for a name identifier claim. We do. Okay. So then we let it go to the point in the test where we aren't getting the populated navigation property. Force it to populate. Get back our current matching file. And when we get here, our user GUID now has a value, and we should have a import template that has a user whose GUID is our claims principal, our valid claims principal, which means that this should find something and try to listing it. And we have a record back. And it's the record we were expecting. We don't get back any field mappings though, because for whatever reason our dot includes are still not working. So, yay! I guess the real thing that I need to research is determining why my dot includes aren't working, and find, like, the thing that I'm going to find out for sure is whether or not this is only the test context that's causing this, or if I make my sample call this method. Oh, yes. 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 Thank you. Or if it's because we're using is it because we're using in-memory database, or in my sample app, when I make it call this, are we getting the actual navigation properties populated? No. There. Whew. Oh boy. Really close, but that also means that I need to set up a test for this method directly to find out. So I'm going to create a test specifically for find matching import file. It's going to be really easy to set up. It's going to look exactly like this up to the point of creating the request. It's just going to test the DB helpers directly, except this is internal. But you know what I remembered to do? I remembered to make all of my internals visible to my test class. So I should be able to test that method directly. Thank goodness. So I'm going to create a DB context factory, seed the template, create a new context from the DB context factory, and have it query. All right, well, that's it for my time. I am way over time. Well, again, the split query isn't even taking effect in the test because my in-memory database is not using split query. That's only been configured in the... Oh, I didn't explain to you what the sample app is. So the sample, I'm developing the library by itself. The sample app is the thing that I'm using to drag and drop a file in, see if it works in practice, and think about what the logic would look like for the UI portion of the library. And so this is where I configured the use split query. And the use split query is on my user store and not on the data import template library. But anyway, it's there now. Glad I came back here. Yeah, okay. But anyway, that's it. Enjoy the rest of your day. I am not going to raid out because I'm going to run immediately and I don't want to do the raid and run thing. But if I were to raid out, I would recommend watching either Black Mage UK, who just recently started streaming, or Kenny Dev. I'll be having the browser open to their streams, but I'm going upstairs and having dinner with my wife and having a great weekend with her after that. So that's it for now. I'll be back again on Monday, and hopefully a lot of this will be taken care of, and we'll move on to the next thing of trying to find a user import template by name or by GUID, and yeah, maybe have the sample app able to demonstrate it in the UI. Yeah, who is a new developer that we can shout out? Sir Leafy Vit. Cool. So follow Sir Leafy Vit as endorsed by Deflux. Are they currently live? They are currently live. Cool. So I'll be lurking on their stream as well. Yeah, definitely check them out. But that's it for me for now. I'm going to go have dinner, do all that stuff. I need to fill in my time card first. But ciao for now. Fill in my time card. Fill out my hours, my logged hours. My boss not only told me I didn't have to work on Thanksgiving, and not only gave me the option to work on the day after Thanksgiving, but they also are letting me bill for all of the extra hours that I worked on Thanksgiving. I mean, I don't get time and a half or anything. Well, I guess I do, but I don't. I don't bill the client time and a half. I bill them regular hours. Anyway, ciao.